Good morning, everyone. I'm sure there'll be people trickling in, but let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us again, and welcome to those who are here for the first time. My name is Stacy Hartman, and I'm director of the Publics Lab at the Graduate Center. And we're very happy today to have the third workshop in our series on audio and video production for online teaching. So it'll work today pretty much the same way that it has worked before. If you could keep yourself muted, that would be great. Please use the chat for discussion and questions. There'll be a time at the end where we're happy to have people jump in verbally as well today. But for the most part, if you could keep your microphone off to avoid ambient noise and feedback, that would be awesome. So one thing I want to say is that, so in the original announcement for this, you may remember that we said that there would be a feedback session the following week for people who would like to put this into practice and get some feedback from Mike. So we're still going to do this. In the email that we send out today, this afternoon, that will include links to all the YouTube videos. There will also be a link to a form. So unfortunately, we can really only make this available to CUNY folks because there's been so much interest in Mike's workshops, which is fantastic. But if you are CUNY affiliated and you would like to make a very short, like 2 or 3 minute video for Mike to critique, you can fill out this form and we can be in touch. And then next week on Wednesday at 11, if for a couple of people who are okay being critiqued publicly, we'll have a session where we can watch a couple of the videos and talk about them, and that's open to everyone. The feedback session is open to everyone, but we have to limit the videos to CUNY folks. And we will all of this information will be sent out in the email this afternoon. So I just wanted to let you know that that's coming. Otherwise, I want to thank Mike is the presenter for putting all of this together. I want to thank Justin Beauchamp, who's the college assistant for the Publics Lab. I want to thank the Teaching and Learning Center and GC Digital Initiatives that have co-sponsored this. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
So welcome back to the show. If you've been here for all 3 modules, I'd like to congratulate everyone for putting up with my weird style of teaching. I know I've been particularly harsh on the PowerPoint idea. I'm sure a lot of people got here thinking like, I want to learn how to make a good PowerPoint. And I opened up that first module with, look at how easy it is to make a PowerPoint. And then the second module was me pretty much saying, I hate PowerPoints and I never want to see them ever again. I mean, I'm being dramatic, but you get the point. So I hope everyone is nice and awake. I always get tired of these workshops on the 3rd day for some reason. But then again, they usually requires traveling somewhere. So maybe in this format, it kind of just feels like you get to like watch a TV show in bed or something. So it's a lot easier for a lot of us to do. So today we are gonna talk about lighting techniques, then cell phone techniques. And then in the last 30 minutes or so, we're gonna see one of my recent videos that I picked because it's one of my personal favorites, because I think that pedagogically it represents what I want to do in the future. So we're gonna lean really hard into the pedagogy side of this in that particular part of the workshop. But first, we're going to do the tech stuff, specifically audio and lighting techniques for whatever kind of camera you got. Cell phone, a real camera, or a laptop camera. So we're going to look at lighting first, because the proper use of lighting can really up your quality. But again, if possible, use your cell phone to record your videos. It just looks better instantly. Not all of us are going to be able to do that. Some of us need to use our webcam because we're doing something simultaneously on our webcam that we need to use our webcam. But if you have the option to record your lectures separately, use your cell phone. It's It's already like a ready-made, pretty good camera that's in your pocket. So, and plus, cell phones process footage for us real time. It's always adjusting the settings. It's always adjusting exposure and shutter speed and blah, 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 as opposed to real expensive cameras. They don't do anything until you tell them to do something for you. So there's actually a bit of an advantage to using your cell phone if you're not super familiar with the way cameras work. So a cell phone is actually a really quick and easy step up from your webcam. So in this first video, I'm going to show you guys, I'm going to show you all how I light myself in 3 different ways. 2 of them, I think it's 2 of them. Yes, 2 of them requiring no budget whatsoever. But I did use these techniques on my YouTube channel at the beginning. Now I have a small budget to work with, although actually I would like to acknowledge that that budget doubled in size just yesterday with all the donations to my Patreon account. So thank you so much for that. That helps me out so much. I can't even exaggerate how much that helps me out. Since I opened this Patreon account, it's been a game changer to the YouTube channel and to all of these things that I'm doing digitally. But anyway, let's watch the first video on lighting. 2 methods are free. One is a setup that is budget friendly. It is 9 minutes, so I will see you back here in 10 minutes. Welcome back, everybody. Mike here with The Social Life of Language, bringing to you another video production tutorial for teachers, professors, and anyone else interested. Remember, all these videos are available on my Patreon account. Link below. Today we'll be talking about lighting your subject, or in this case, lighting yourself. Now what's great about lighting is it's not super expensive, and lighting properly can actually make it appear as though you are recording on something better than you actually have. So we can make a laptop appear better. We can make a cell phone camera appear better. You know, like when you take a picture with your cell phone indoors and it's kind of dark and it comes out grainy and blocky and really kind of crappy. On the other hand, sometimes when you take pictures outside, it just looks amazing. It looks like a really expensive camera. That has everything to do with lighting. And it's the same principle when recording with your laptop or a webcam. If you don't have enough light, it's gonna look cheap. It's gonna look bad. If there's not enough light, it's gonna look grainy and blocky. In this video, I'm gonna take you through 2 lighting setups. One that's free and one that is less than $100. And I'll provide the Amazon links below. Now for this video, I'm not gonna be talking about background lights. That is a separate video on its own. For this video, we're talking about lighting your main subject, lighting yourself. Let's talk about the very first, very basic principle. To make these lower end cameras look good, we need to be well lit. On the other hand, if there is too much light, we'll end up creating these hot spots on our face. So what is a hot spot? It's when your camera can't handle the light and it becomes overexposed, basically creating a white blotch. Let me show you what I mean. This is the basic cell phone light. That right there is a hot spot, a total white blown out spot. Now we want to avoid these, obviously because they don't look good, but there's another reason. It gives away the fact that you are using a low-end camera. It gives away the fact that you're recording on a cell phone or on a laptop, because neither of those kinds of cameras handle light very well. You have to be really delicate with the lighting, but it's actually not too hard. But a lot of viewers will generally associate those hot spots, either consciously or unconsciously, with lower end cameras with low quality. But we can make both a cell phone video and a laptop video look pretty decent, just as long as we avoid too much light and not enough light. First, let's talk about free lighting. All I'm gonna do is open up the curtains to my room. So we're basically using window lighting.
Alright, so here we are with sunlight. Basically, I'm just sitting next to a big window. Now this definitely changes the overall mood of the video. It's way less dramatic. Now this might actually be a pretty good look for a lecture, but the dramatic lighting, that's just more my style. Now of course, your camera is not gonna be able to handle direct sunlight on your face. That will just make hot spots all over the place. Now at the beginning of my YouTube career, I depended on this setup on window lighting, meaning I used my window light as my key light. That's what it's called, a key light. And I remember this by thinking, good lighting is key. Therefore, the main light is the key light. But something happened while recording one of my videos that made me never want to record with my window again. It made me think, nope, I can't do this. I can't depend on my window lighting. Basically, I was in the middle of a recording and it started raining outside. It took away all the sunlight that I needed. And then it stayed raining for 4 days. So basically, my video was stuck. I couldn't record without my main light, without my key light. So for someone like me who's constantly recording videos, I need something that is a little bit more dependable or at least consistent. Something that I could access at any time. Plus, if I wanted to record in the evening when there isn't a sun, I could. So this is basically where I took a step up to using a house lamp. Literally a very basic house lamp. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so here we are with lamp lighting. Basically, I closed my curtains again and I put the lamp right here, right in front of me off to the side. So this is a basic lamp that we are using as a key light. Now this may or may not look better to you than the sunlight. In all honesty, I prefer the sunlight, but hey, at least it's consistent and I don't have to worry if it's gonna rain today. Something else you gotta pay attention to is the color of the lamp shade. Is that lamp shade gray or beige or white? This is going to affect the color of your skin on camera. The same thing with the light bulb. You gotta pay attention to the color of that too. Is it one of those super white bulbs? Or is it one of those super yellow golden bulbs? It will matter. If you use a yellow light and you also have a beige lampshade, your skin is gonna appear very yellow. You might even look sickly. So I suggest buying daylight bulbs. It literally says that on the package, daylight. This just tells you that the light is pretty much a white color. Okay, let's switch back to my normal lighting. Now let's just say you don't want to depend on sunlight and you don't want to worry about light bulbs and lampshades. This is the first kit that I bought for under $100. And it actually stayed with me for a very long time. This is it right here, $45 light and $40 tabletop tripod. The links are below if you want to check them out yourself. Now this light is made by a company called Viltrox. Pretty dependable company, I do recommend them. But what's good about this light, and by good I mean what's easy about this light, is that you can both adjust the brightness, but you can also adjust the color. So right here, this is a whitish bluish tint, but we can also change this down to a golden yellowish tint. Now that you would basically adjust to your skin tone. Test out the different colors, see what is pleasing to your eye. To me, I don't really like the golden yellowish light because it turns my skin a little bit too yellow. I much prefer the whitish bluish spectrum. Now another good thing about this particular lighting setup is that this tabletop tripod actually adjusts in height. Now I would recommend basically putting this behind your laptop or cell phone, a little higher than your head and kind of pointing down at you at an angle, exactly the way I have my light set up right here. You just gotta be careful about making weird shadows on your face. You don't wanna accidentally give yourself a weird horror movie style. Now that particular light comes with a battery, which makes it really convenient because you can basically put it anywhere. Plus, let's say you're on a Zoom call and you don't have an outlet close by. You'll find that this battery is really convenient. And in my opinion, this light is more than capable of serving as your main key light, especially when you're just starting off, especially if you're just using a laptop cam or a cell phone cam. Plus, you get the added benefit of not having to depend on sunlight and not having to worry about what color your light bulb is or what color your lampshade is. Okay, that's all for today's video. Remember, you can access all these tutorials on my Patreon account. This is Mike with The Social Life of Language, and we're done.
Okay, so lighting. We do got to talk about a few things here in terms of lighting. First off, sunlight will probably produce the best picture quality, not direct sunlight. You don't want the rays directly hitting your face because that's going to create those hot spots all over the place. At the beginning of, actually right here, you can see all of these hot spots on my face. That is literally just lighting. If I were to cover my face like this from some angle there, maybe a little bit. So those you want to avoid, obviously. They look bad, they look cheap. Now, you can either light yourself straight on, which will give you a very neutral look, or if you want a little bit more of a dramatic look, you can face a little bit, you can angle off just a tiny bit with the window kind of towards your side. If you want a little bit more drama in there, you can create that shadow on your face. Or if maybe you have a skin issue that day on one side of your face that you kind of don't want lit up very much, that's also a really good trick. You'll definitely see a bump in quality just with adjusting your light. On a laptop, not so much. Laptops are just ultimately just a little bit too sensitive and things just go wrong very quickly, which is why in terms of laptop recording, you want to prioritize things like camera angles and framing and background and buying a good microphone. All the stuff that is not necessarily directly connected to the image quality. Obviously, you can't ignore the image. That would also be a mistake, but you got to work with what you got. And then you have to fix the things or prioritize the things to fix in the right order. With that said, on my gear list that I sent around, or Stacy sent around, or Justin sent around, I did put in a webcam that you can buy. It's like $100 something or something. It looks almost as good as a cell phone, almost. But I would much prefer you to spend that money on a microphone over a webcam, or even take that money and invest it into your cell phone, a better cell phone. Yes. One more thing here. Those ring lights that you see that are super, super popular, right? They're like a gigantic O. They're called a ring light, O-shaped. These lights are fine. They produce a very distinctive reflection on your eyeballs. Like you can see those circles on your eyeballs. It looks nice. It's a certain aesthetic. I strongly associate that light shape on the eyes with fashion photography, with YouTube makeup tutorials. Your students might also think that too, especially if they consume fashion media. So there's that. That's a decision for you, but I can't in good conscience recommend you use a ring light, because to me, the ring light not only looks like a trendy aesthetic, it looks like an out-of-date trendy aesthetic. So that's 2 strikes against it in my book, and you're definitely running the risk of using a lighting setup that was so 3 years ago or whatever. So back to the cell phones. Almost everyone has a decent cell phone. You will get a massive upgrade in video quality just switching to your phone. You might notice a lot of graininess on your cell phone. All of that graininess will go away once you introduce better lighting. But at the same time, cell phones are a little bit sensitive too. They are smartphones, so they do kind of adjust and they help you. But they are quick to create those hot spots. Definitely not as bad as a laptop though. But you do gotta baby the cell phone just a little bit. Again, the key light, the key to lighting is not too much light and not too little light. The light stand that I suggest in there is probably the best option for a beginner media maker, just because you can adjust everything really easily. Then the lamp, if you pay attention to the light bulb color and also the lamp shade color. But I use that light stand, that Viltrox little light with the light stand. I use that for a lot of my older videos, and you know, it worked. It did the job. This was before I was trying to go for this like ultra aesthetic movie-ish kind of look. I would use it in combination with my window. So I'd have my window open, and then I would have that light there on the side too, to kind of make the lighting more consistent all the way through the video. So I've used that light a lot, and ultimately I just think it's easier than being at the mercy of the weather, of the clouds outside. At the beginning, at the beginning of the video, you could, when I'm using the sunlight, you can definitely see all the shifts in the different colors. Sometimes it looked a little bit yellow, sometimes it looked white, sometimes half of my face was blown out with a hot spot. That's just kind of what you're dealing with when you're dealing with window lighting. But again, there was a certain moment where I thought the window lighting looked much better than my regular lighting. It just like made everything so accurate. The skin color was like real life. There was all this even shadowing. I really liked the way it looked. And there are ways to fix all of those changes in the lighting in your computer. But again, you're talking about adding work to yourself, having to know how to do something else. So now, considering the light shifts in that video looked very extreme to me, I don't actually think most people would notice it too much, and it's not gonna make or break your video. Now, on a side note, everyone's cell phone has two cameras, right? It has the selfie camera and it has the outer camera. The outer camera always looks better, always. They put more technology in that outer camera. But at the beginning, you want to be able to see yourself. That's just simply more important. So you're going to have to use your selfie camera. It's still an upgrade from your laptop though. Okay, so that was about lighting your subject. Actually, there was a good question here that I wanted to address right now. Lauren asked, how long should we aim for these videos to be? I heard no more than 30 to 45 minutes at a time. That's actually a really good question that took me about a couple of years to decide for myself. All of my videos are generally under 12 minutes. That's just what I decided was good for me. And you can also look inside of YouTube to see how many people leave your videos. And apparently everybody's attention span is right about the 5 to 8 minute mark, meaning most people watching my media get bored around 5 to 8 minutes. That's actually very impressive for YouTube standards, because generally you have the 1 to 2 minutes. People will watch 1 or 2 minutes and then leave. Now, for a straight on instructional video, instructional lecture that you're going to be putting online or in any program that your university is using, it's going to depend on your delivery mainly. If you notice in my videos, I cut out every single pause. So there's no silence. If I were to leave all those pauses in there, I think it would stretch out my video to maybe close to 20 minutes. But to me, the ideal amount of time would probably be 20 max. I know Lauren had asked about 30 to 45 minutes. I mean, the difference between my stuff on YouTube and your stuff is your students have to watch it. They're assigned to watch it. So now we're kind of getting into the realm of like, how enjoyable will it be to watch a video for 30 to 45 minutes? To me, that's a little long. I would make my videos 20-ish minutes, but that's also directly related to what I try to achieve in my videos, which we're going to talk about at the very end. I mean, in the last 30 minutes or so. Okay, so here we go. Yes, so that was lighting your subject. Now we're moving on. We're moving on to creating the most important thing, the most important element to this thing we call quality. Here we move on to audio. This next video is about microphones that will help you create more, not just acceptable videos, but they can help you make good videos on your cell phone. So in this module, or in the previous module, I had already talked about my super duper ultimate microphone, which I always use. It's always my Zoom microphone. It's always my production microphone. This microphone just travels with me everywhere because it's just that easy to use. But $250 is a whole lot of money for people that are just not willing to make that kind of jump into media production. So in this next video, I'm going to recommend 2 different setups that objectively sound decent to me with all of my years of experience dealing with sound. So for this next video, I would advise that you turn up the volume a little bit on your computers, just so you can really get the idea of what these sound like. It's a little bit jolting in that first move from my regular microphone to the budget microphone. And it's gonna sound technically way less good. But trust me, when you don't have that contrast there, moving from a $250 microphone to this budget microphone, when you don't have that contrast, your students will not be able to tell. People will not be able to tell. It'll just sound good to them the whole time. So turn up your volume on whatever you got. If you got headphones, even better. You can turn them up just a little bit. So let's watch the next one. It is 8 minutes. So let's meet back here in 9 minutes.
Welcome back, everybody. Mike here with The Social Life of Language, bringing to you another video production tutorial for teachers, educators, professors, and anyone else interested. If you want access to all these video production tutorials, donate to my Patreon account. Today, we're going to be talking about setting up your cell phone for video lectures, or talking head videos, and even voiceovers. We'll be looking toward achieving the best possible quality using only our cell phones. First off, if someone were to ask me, should I record with my laptop or my cell phone, I would definitely say record with your cell phone. Cell phones have cameras made for pictures and video, while your laptop or computer have webcams that were probably just made for Skype or video chatting, not exactly made for quality. So if you are making lectures for your classroom, the cell phone is the way to go. So how do we make our cell phone better quality? The easiest way to get a major boost in cell phone quality is not actually about the video. It's about the audio. Using an external microphone will boost that cell phone quality big time. Now with that said, the first thing you want to do is find a quiet room to record in. This often means going to the room with the most furniture in it, with sofas or a bed or thick curtains or carpet. All of this material helps absorb sound, which in turn makes the room quieter. So how do you know if you're in a quiet room right now? To test that, just simply clap your hands really hard, and if you hear a really long echo after the clap, that room is probably not ideal for recording. But you gotta just do your best. Oftentimes, a room with a carpet or a bed will definitely absorb a lot of that echo. Also, Don't forget to turn off ceiling fans, or if you have one of those window AC units, those are really noisy. Turn all that stuff off. And now let's move on to the external microphones. What I'm suggesting here is very middle of the road quality. That means budget, but also not a piece of crap. There are tons of $20 microphones out there, and they sound terrible. Just don't waste your money on those. Oh gosh, this is the story of my life. Can you hear that? I live in New York, you know, there's just non-stop sirens all the time. These actually interrupt these videos so often. Are you just parked outside of my place? Okay, moving on. I can't wait all day. So today I'm gonna suggest 2 different microphone setups. One that comes with an entire kit, and one that's a really simple clip-on lavalier microphone. But keep in mind, these external microphones are made for cameras and cell phones. They will not connect to a laptop. Or they will, but you gotta buy all this extra crap that ends up being really expensive, and in that case, just buy a good microphone. So let's go ahead and start with this lavalier mic, because I think the idea of just clipping this onto yourself is less intimidating than this, even though I like this better. All right, so here we are with the Rode Video Smart Lav Plus. Now, of course, we're gonna hear a drop in quality because this just is not on the same level as the microphone I normally use. However, I would say, knowing the way a whole lot of microphones sound, this microphone's actually pretty decent. And it's still gonna give you way better quality than sitting 2 or 3 feet away from your cell phone. So this lavalier is clipped right here to my chest, which will grab onto the bass frequencies much better than your cell phone microphone that's like 2 or 3 feet away. A huge part of audio is simply mic placement, getting the mic close enough to the source. The closer you are, the richer the sound will be. So this microphone is 80 bucks. It's easy to use with a decent sound quality. Let's move on to this other microphone and I'll explain this entire kit. So this is the Movo VXR10. It comes with everything you see here. This is the tabletop tripod. It comes with this cell phone holder. And this cell phone holder also acts as a microphone holder. This is the little microphone. Slides right in. And then it attaches to your Android or to your iPhone. It even comes with that extra iPhone dongle. This entire kit is $90, and I'll link it below. But this right here could be your entire video production setup. And honestly, a lot of professional YouTubers use this microphone. So let's go ahead and switch to this microphone so that we can check out the sound quality. Okay, so once again, this is the Movo VXR10. Now to my ears, this one sounds better, but it definitely doesn't have that ease of use factor of a lavalier mic. You end up having to set up this whole kit, although it's not really that hard, it just takes a couple minutes. Now the idea is the same. You want to get this microphone as close to you as possible because you want the microphone to pick up as many of the audio frequencies as possible, especially the bass frequencies. And this applies to both men and women. The bass is what's gonna make your voice sound big and full. But I think a bonus about this particular kit is that it comes with a pop filter or a windscreen. This little thing right here. And all it does is cut out the little puffs of air that might come out of your voice every now and then. Pop, pop. Puffs of air with the P. Puff of air with the P. And you can see it fixed it either entirely or almost entirely. With this windscreen, I think that this microphone is totally capable of recording voiceovers because you can end up getting really close to your microphone. And if you want that radio announcer voice, it's possible with this microphone. Whichever microphone you choose, remember to pick a quiet room to record in. Now let's switch back to my regular microphone for my final thoughts. So both of these mics are relatively cheap, but these are ones that I personally use or have used before in the past, which is why I have them. The lavalier really has that ease of use factor. Even though it sounds not as good or not as full as this one. Both are basically the same price and both will increase your audio video quality immensely. Although one thing to think about is if you get this lavalier mic, you're still gonna have to figure out how to prop up your cell phone. Maybe on some books or something, or maybe you can just buy the little tripod setup. So this is kind of a bonus when buying this particular Movo microphone. Either way, you're gonna get that little boost in quality. And when it comes to audio video production, that's what we're looking for. Tiny incremental improvements. So if you get a microphone, awesome. If you get a microphone and sit in a really quiet room, even better. All these little improvements add up. Well, that's all for today, folks. Remember, you can access this entire video production series by donating to my Patreon account. This is Mike with The Social Life of Language, and we're done.
Okay, so we got a couple of good questions here. I'm actually really digging this chat question format. It's so easy and I can see them so quickly. So somebody asked about a fancy computer webcam. Right now, I am using a 2020 iMac super duper duper pooper whatever computer. This is the best that they got, and this is the best that it can achieve. I'm a little bit angry that Mac did not invest any of its capabilities, or you know, they make the iPhone, that is amazing. Why didn't they put something like that in the computer webcam? So I don't think it matters how good your computer is. It's gonna look not as good as a cell phone. I wouldn't ever personally use this. This is just a little bit too grainy for me. I can see all the grain over here. I can see this hot spot right here on my face. It's a little bit too hard to control for me. Another really interesting one was how to remove the glasses glare from your glasses. This is actually a problem that I had for a really long time, and I could not figure out how to get it off. So generally I use contacts. I do wear glasses, and if you look at my older videos, I wear glasses in there. So easiest way would be wear contacts. If you don't have contacts, if you don't like contacts, which I don't actually like contacts, but you know, I do it for the videos. You want to put your light, whatever light that you're using, really high up on top of you and pointing down. That way the reflection from the glasses hits your glasses and then shoots downward at an angle, just like a reflection. So it's moving in a direction away from your camera. So if you have, so right here, I'm sitting in front of a camera, in front of the laptop, I have the webcam right here on top. This would produce the reflection of the computer perfectly on my glasses. Tip number 2, tilt your glasses just a little bit forward. People won't be able to see that. They won't notice it, but just tilt it just a little bit. And like with my glasses, actually, that for some reason like tends to fix my vision. Maybe like I really need to get some new glasses at this point. So if you put that together, higher light plus angling your lens, your glasses lenses just a little bit lower, it will more than likely fix the problem. So that only took me like a couple years to figure out, but that's how I do it. Somebody asked about a different microphone, an Audix something or other 2020 USB mic. Those USB mics, so those ones that sit on your table, any of those that are like 80, 100 bucks or whatever, those are pretty good. The mistake that most people make with those types of microphones is that they put it on the desk really far away from them. The key to audio is proximity. You got to get that microphone close to your face. I'm talking like, so my microphone right here is, I generally say do like a hang loose distance, and this is how far away your microphone should be, no matter where you put it, whether it's on the desk, whether it's up high. that's how far you want to be away from it. So with those kind of radio announcer style microphones, you're going to want to put some books underneath it, prop it up, and get it about right here. And try to speak into it if you can. If it comes out in your video and you don't like that, then you're going to have to get creative. Am I totally against this type of a picture with an actual audio mic in there? I'm actually not totally against it if you can just make it into a creative aesthetic. There are plenty of YouTube people that show the microphone in their shot, and it just kind of becomes their signature. They're part of the way they look online, and I think it looks totally acceptable. So I wouldn't worry too much about being able to see your microphone. The important thing is get it close to your mouth, at least like this far away. Okay, so we are gonna send out the link to all an email, with all these Amazon links, gear lists that I kind of typed up for everybody. So here we had 2 different setups under $100. I can't stress enough though. Once you fix your camera angle, got a nice background, maybe sit next to a window, upgrading your audio quality is just as important as all of those other things. It might be the most important thing that you spend your money on. Now, remember that your voice is being sent straight into your audience's ears, especially if they're wearing headphones. That is intimately close to your audience. That's why it's so important that you got good sound quality. It's so important you got good sound quality, especially if your main jam is doing voiceovers. You got to really step up your quality for that. That should be like your priority. That smaller, this one that we got here, this little microphone, I was actually really surprised at the quality of it. A lot of YouTubers actually use this microphone as their main microphone. But what I wasn't expecting is when you get really close to it and you put that little windscreen, that pop filter over it, you can actually get some like really good, big, full voice tones that you might want for your voiceover. So yeah, that's part of the reason why audio is so important. Now, the next tip that I talk about in the video is recording in a quiet room. If you want to check if your room is noisy, all you have to do is clap your hands. And if you want to try it right now, go ahead and clap your hands. If you can hear an echo after you clap your hands with a real good hearty clap, that means you're probably not in an ideal space for audio recording. That means there's a lot of echo in there. What you're gonna want is to be in a room that has a lot of soft stuff, soft material, because soft stuff absorbs sound. Now, if you can imagine this, imagine if you're recording voiceovers at a table, for example, and that's a hard surface, your table. That will reflect the audio back into the room, which creates a tiny, tiny, tiny echo that you won't even hear, but it's there. Depending on how many times that tiny echo is reflected around your room will determine how much echo you will hear in your microphone. For example, if you're at a desk and you're recording and you have a bed next to you and you have curtains and you have carpet in your room, all of this stuff is absorbing the sound. It's gonna kill that tiny echo that's coming out of your voice because soft stuff absorbs sound. On the other hand, if you're sitting at that desk right next to a hard wall, which might reflect your sound up into the ceiling, which then shoots back down to your hardwood floor, which then shoots back to another wall, that is what produces echo. That tiny amount of echo being reflected and bouncing and bouncing and bouncing off hard surfaces, that makes that tiny echo not so tiny anymore. That is what you hear very generally in cheaper audio recordings, because people are not mindful of the room that they're actually in. And the good thing about these external microphones is a lot of times they do a good job of cutting out all of those echoes too. So a quiet room plus a good external microphone is going to automatically give you a huge sound improvement. But that's why, for example, if you've ever walked into a walk-in closet, your voice suddenly gets really big and then there's no echo in there. It's the soft clothing. It's absorbing all the sound. It's preventing the hard surfaces from bouncing your voice all over the place. If you've ever talked to a voice actor, a lot of these people record in closets because the voice sounds huge in there, with the microphone close to their mouth, and it's dead quiet. Now, even older cell phones will look probably a little bit better than your laptop. Like I just said, I have a brand new computer, and to me, this does not look well. Now you pair that older cell phone with the lighting techniques, and then pair it with a decent microphone, and you got yourself a little studio right there. At the beginning of my channel, I recorded on a webcam. Those videos are still there, and those are still the most popular videos. I think there's like something like 50,000 views on those older videos. But even back then, I was not using the built-in microphone to anything. I was using an external microphone. That is just to re-emphasize the fact that people forgive bad video when it's paired with decent audio. Even if you have just mediocre video, as long as you pay attention to that audio, people will pay attention to your video. So the remainder of today, I wanted to cover two more things very quickly. First, cameras and camera brands, and then we're going to delve into pedagogy. I'm going to try to make this camera and camera brands part a little bit quicker because this is automatically going to be less interesting to a lot of people, but I think it needs to be addressed. So a lot of us got here with the very basic question is, I want to buy a camera. What should I buy? And I totally support that. Yeah, buy a camera. It's going to make it look awesome. Although by now you should have learned that the camera is not the most important part. There's a lot of things you got to do before. But if you want to buy the camera, definitely not going to stop you. You should totally do it. Even if you buy a new cell phone, totally do that. There are major brands: Fuji, Nikon, Panasonic, Sony, Canon. Those are the main brands. There are tons of models out there, but we can actually eliminate 95% of them based on what we need to do talking head lectures. So that actually slims down the choices to like hardly anything, which is good. The first thing that we want in a camera is good autofocus, which is literally just having the subject in focus, and hopefully if there's a little bit of a blurry background, awesome. But with cheaper lenses, you don't really get that too much. It still looks better than your cell phone. So autofocus. Watching a video that is not in focus is probably just as painful as listening to an out of tune singer at a karaoke bar. Okay, it's important. You got to have a camera with good autofocus. There are brands known for bad autofocus, so immediately we can X those out. All Panasonic cameras, don't buy. Those have notoriously bad autofocus. Fuji brand have questionable autofocus, but let's just stay away from those two for this type of work that we're doing as lecturers. Because seriously, nothing is more heartbreaking than recording a long ass video and realizing that you were out of focus the whole time. And I've done it a couple times, and I was so upset. I think I just sat there and stared at the floor for like 5 minutes, hating my life because I was so angry about messing up this whole video. I'm pretty sure I didn't even try to re-record it that day. I probably just gave up and said, you know, screw this. I'll come back to this tomorrow. Because oh my God, it's such a painful experience, especially thinking you delivered something great and then you can't use it. So with that said, we are left with Sony and Canon cameras. These are the two brands that have excellent autofocus. It just works. You don't have to worry about it. It does all the work for you. You put it in front of you. It's tracking your face, autofocusing your face the whole time. It's just amazingly easy to use, Sony and Canon. Now, I've only used Sony cameras very briefly, but what I can tell you is that their menu systems are very confusing if you're not used to cameras. On top of that, Canon cameras have a full touch screen on it. So it's literally just boop, 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 touching the screen, getting through the menus really easy, changes stuff really easy. Now to me, if I'm spending a few $100 on a camera, I'm gonna want a damn touch screen, period. So to me, Sony is out. I would never buy a Sony until they put a touchscreen. They have to, I don't know what they're waiting for. They need to put a touchscreen on there. So overall, all of that, main takeaway is I recommend Canon cameras. They're just the easiest to use, best autofocus, have a touchscreen. With that said, not all Canons come with a microphone jack that you can connect an external microphone to. So you need to make sure that whatever you got has a microphone jack. And then finally, the last requirements for a Canon camera or whatever kind of camera that you want to get, you need a flip screen. Actually, I have one right here. So this is the main camera. Hold on, let me get this in full screen here. So this is the main Canon camera that I use, and it has this flip screen, which I flip to the front so I can see myself. This is a requirement at the beginning, or probably forever. I would never buy a camera without the flip screen. You got to have it. You got to make sure you got the angle right, that you frame yourself good, that you followed the rule of thirds, that your audio is coming out in the little audio meter, that you look good, that you don't have a blob of ketchup on your face, and that you're in focus, right? So here I'm going to recommend the Canon M50. M as in Mike. The Canon M50. It is one of the cheapest cheapest Canon cameras right now because it's like 1 year old. And in camera world, that is like super outdated. But this one, I've used it personally. It was my main camera for about a year on my YouTube camera. So I know that this thing works. And I know that it gets me video quality very similar to this $3,000 camera that I have right here. I mean, very similar. Once you put a new lens on that M50, you got something close to this. That Canon M50 is $500 if you buy it brand new. But if you look on the Canon website and you look in the refurbished section, which basically means the box was messed up, or there's a cosmetic issue on the camera, there's a little scratch somewhere. They're basically brand new. Those run for $400. On eBay, you can find the Canon M50 for $350. I just checked it this morning. I've owned it, it's great. It's the most awesome first camera that you can buy, and it's upgradable. You can buy accessories for it, and it gets better and better and better. And updating your camera is probably one of the things that you want to do the least. It's more important that you get good lighting techniques, good camera angles, decorating your background. The camera itself is the thing that you want to update the least often, because it's much more important that you know what you're doing with lighting, you know what you're doing with audio, etc., etc. Okay, so that's enough of the techie stuff. Okay, now in this last part of the show, we are going to talk about my method and my approach to these videos. And I'd like to express some kind of deep concerns I have just with doing this workshop. When I originally thought about doing this workshop, I wanted to show people how fun lectures can be. I wanted to show people that teaching digitally can be fun and innovative and it can increase accessibility to students of color or marginalized students, I did not imagine that I would be contributing to this shift to online learning. I now feel totally 100% complicit in the entire process of universities potentially taking away our physical classrooms. And that kind of, it upsets me, and it makes me have mixed feelings about this workshop just in general, because it's not what I had envisioned in the beginning. I wanted to do something really cool. I wanted to show people how to, make the YouTube channel, make your teaching super fun and using graphics and stuff like that. Now the times have changed. But that was what I was originally going to base this first, this workshop on, something like that. Nevertheless, when I started these videos, I made these lectures, these YouTubes, for students like me entering their first year of graduate school. I felt so alienated in class. I felt just really behind everybody else. I turned to YouTube for help, and those free online classes like Harvard and Stanford and those places. But it was mainly YouTube that I found the most stuff. But there was a major problem with the material on YouTube. It was either extremely broad, or it was a class lecture that was taught in that same academic language that I was already having so much trouble with. So it was either a cartoon lesson of Michel Foucault and the word discourse that was 3 minutes long, or it was a super boring ass Harvard lecture with a camera set up in the back of the room with the PowerPoint cut in half, couldn't see anything. And surprise, Harvard professors were not exactly amazing teachers. They were most of the time, it was very monotone men in their 70s standing behind a podium using PowerPoints that you couldn't see because the camera was not catching them. So in a way, I'm kind of traumatized by that experience. And it's the last thing that I want. The last thing I want to do is show you how to replicate that look, that Harvard, Stanford lecture. I want us to do better. At the same time, when I was watching these lectures, I just immediately thought in my head, I can do this better. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm going to try it. I'll just try it. And that was my first experiment. The idea was quite political at the time, but I didn't really realize it. All I did was ask myself, what would I want my professor to look and sound like? And that was easy. I wanted my professor to look like a regular person. And I wanted them to use regular language that was not condescending, that I didn't feel that somebody was looking down upon me for not knowing this big vocabulary word. So the first lectures are still there. Those first Foucault lectures, which is basically chapter by chapter guide of Foucault. In comparison, the stuff that I make now, those first lectures are pretty bad. They're terrible, but I mean, they still have like 50,000 views. And most of the feedback comments on the bottom on YouTube revolve around the feeling of finally understanding something for the first time, or now I get it, and I knew what those students meant. I knew what it felt like to not get it and then finally understand it when somebody took the time to explain something to me slowly. So a lot of times people just assume if you're reading Foucault, it's because you've already read Foucault in the past. But I mean, no, we can't assume this prior knowledge all the time. So that's why I felt so lost in my early doctoral years. When I made those first lectures, I said, I'm going to make these lectures aimed at an undergraduate comprehension level, whatever that means, undergraduate comprehension level. Even if an undergraduate classroom wouldn't normally take the time to go through an entire Foucault book, unless you're like a philosophy major or something. So that meant I'm not going to use any big ass words unnecessarily. If I do, I'm going to explain why I use the big words. So for that first series, it's aimed at that audience. Over time, I kind of started thinking about what it meant to teach at an undergraduate level. What did that really entail? At that point, I had stripped out most of the big words, and that worked for people. That worked for a lot of students, a lot of students. You can see the comments yourself, they're there. But you know, I just thought, you know what? I want to make stuff easier. But how do I do that while I retain the complexity of whatever I'm covering? But then I also just thought, isn't that the whole point of teaching? To get across material in an easy way, whether it's complicated or not? That's the whole point of teaching. And why do I think that I need to prove to my students that a big vocabulary makes me look like a teacher, makes me the teacher? So I said to myself, in the harshest terms that I could think at the time, I asked myself, do students give a shit whether or not I am using big words? And to me, the answer was no. The displaying of vocabulary words was about me, myself, and worrying about my representation to other teachers that might be watching me, to other educators that might potentially be judging my lecture. So it wasn't about my students at all, the using big words stuff. So to this day, I doubt the students that watch my stuff wish that I used big words. I have a feeling that the reason my work has gotten so popular is because I don't use big words, because I don't throw out that jargon all the time when I don't need to. If you really watch, I do throw them out there every now and then. Just if that's the key word that I'm looking to explain, then obviously that big word needs to be used. So I decided, you know what? I want my YouTubes to be understandable to high school students, not just undergraduate. I want high school kids to get what I'm saying, to get the work that I choose to cover. Now, keep in mind, I used to teach high school, right? So I went back to my memory bank and I began thinking, what really worked with my high school kids? And to that, the answer was easy. You got to make content fun and entertaining and relevant, whatever that means. So in these videos, I am importing high school pedagogy here. High school. And the cool thing is, since I'm dealing with such serious topics, it's actually really easy to make this stuff interesting, especially because I'm talking about such polarizing topics all the time. I deal a lot in the world of race and racism. So this next video that we're gonna watch, this is the one that for some reason I'm particularly proud of. It's a little bit older, actually. It's a couple months. This is the first time that I decided to experiment all the way with everything that I know about editing. Like, for example, I act out some of the quotes in the article in a satiric way, of course. In this video, I chose 2 keywords to really focus on: mock Spanish and linguistic appropriation. And I call these videos interpretative guides as opposed to lectures, because ultimately these videos are based on my interpretation of material, and they're supposed to help students interpret the material themselves. And in order to increase the fun factor, or what we might call making relevant to students' lives, I always stick in contemporary examples in an effort to connect to my audience. I like to use movie clips because it's super easy to find and students connect with them very easily. Now remember, I'm aiming here for high school comprehension level with adult material. However, people don't ever think that I'm teaching at a high school level because I just don't make the lectures condescending. It just looks like I'm having a good time teaching. But I think the craziest question that I'm still a little puzzled about, if the audience that I imagine myself teaching, this imaginary high school audience, if that is my audience, why in the world are these lectures used so much in graduate school and even in doctoral level courses? Because these are aimed at high school. But I'm seeing my videos pop up on syllabi like all across the country. I think the answer is pretty simple. Everyone likes to have fun while they're learning, even adults, right? So while you're watching this next one, feel free to chat in any questions, even if you think they're weird or specific or irrelevant to the conversation. It can be pedagogical, it can be technical, whatever. This video is 10 minutes long. We'll meet back here in 11 minutes. And I'd also just really like to hear y'all's critiques. Like, what can I do better? Nothing you say here can be harsher than, you know, a peer-reviewed commentary you get back from an academic journal, you know, so it's not gonna hurt my feelings. So let's go ahead, go out and watch this, this particular video. It's 10 minutes long, and then I'll give a couple of comments really quickly, and then Stacy is gonna help us choose questions.
Welcome back, word nerds. Mike here with The Social Life of Language, making complex theory simple but never simplified. You think that sounds cool? Hit that subscribe button now. Today we're covering an article by Rusty Barrett called Language Ideology and Racial Inequality, the Competing Functions of Spanish in an Anglo-owned Mexican Restaurant. So here we got an anthropologist working as a bartender in a white-owned Mexican restaurant. And we get to see all the racist behind-the-scenes action. I've worked at a restaurant before. It is this bad. So this is an entertaining article on the ever-so-popular concept mock Spanish. So we're gonna center that today. Now, mock Spanish includes phrases like, excuse me, where's the baño? No problemo, dude. Why is there caca on the floor? Sometimes these language practices used by white speakers reproduce racial hierarchies that literally mess with people's lives. Let's quickly get in some examples of mock Spanish.
Hey, Miguel. That's more than 3 ounces of cheese, my friend. We talked about this before. Less queso, more listen-o.
Now in that clip, no question about it, this is said in a way that mocks Spanish speakers. But it also indexes. Now remember, indexes is a sign that points to something, like our index finger, it points. In this particular scenario, it points to a hierarchy. It performs action on the context. Now it points to a lot of things. I'm your boss. I speak English well. I assume you don't because of your skin color, because of that mustache you got, because of the accent I perceive you to have, whether you have an accent or not. But on page 165, Barrett is saying, hey, let's look at what happens if we reframe mock Spanish as a form of linguistic appropriation. What pops out at us when we use this term? Perhaps we can think of appropriation as taking credit for something that's not yours, or maybe stealing something. But I think the common denominator here is the ability to exert power over the meaning of something. So we might immediately think of appropriating something like clothing, like stealing or taking credit for a style. Now, when something is appropriated, there is the potential that the meaning of something totally changes. Something was badass at one point, maybe not so much anymore. So let's watch this famous clip from Terminator that Barrett talks about on page 166. But let's think about framing this as linguistic appropriation. Let's watch.
Keep it under 65. We don't want to be pulled over.
Affirmative.
No. You gotta listen to the way people talk. You don't say affirmative.
or some shit like that. You say, no problemo.
No problemo.
Now remember, we gotta pay attention to how mock Spanish performs action in and on the context. So I wanna pull your attention to a different part of this clip, because I think it's as important a phrase as the no problemo part. And it's when he says, you gotta listen to the way people talk. I'm kind of like, what people are you talking about? I think he might mainly just be talking about white people. So he's teaching the Terminator how to be cool and likable, because allegedly all people say things like no problemo. Here we got an example of the expansion of white public space, where this kind of Spanish is perceived as normal, as cool. But again, normal to who? So I think Barrett is onto something here with this idea of linguistic appropriation. Now, if you saw the first video that I made on mock Spanish, click here. I talked about the need to look at what effects mock Spanish has on context. But if I were to claim mock Spanish is materially harmful to people, I think that's a tough sell. It's hard to prove, right? What I think is kind of brilliant about this article is that Barrett moves us from this sort of abstract realm of racialization to also show us how mock Spanish, or what he also calls Anglo-Spanish, he shows us that this linguistic practice can have real material effects. It can get people fired. So we gotta remember, language performs action on context, and linguistic practice can be a vehicle of racial ideologies. Now Barrett tells us straight out, there is some vile racism coming from the white employees and the white managers. Some of the circulating stereotypes of this restaurant includes the idea that Spanish speakers, probably Mexican speakers, are sneaky and treacherous and dangerous.
I really don't want to work in a Mexican restaurant. Ugh.
Who does? Mexicans.
Hey, watch it, fuckers.
Also that Spanish speakers / Mexicans are probably dumb and illiterate. They don't know how to read, they don't know how to talk.
I'm expecting a very important delivery at the house, so could you please call me if it arrives? I'll give you my cell number. 401-555-1125.
4
40.
440
No, I was just repeating the 4. 14.
1.
But also another strong one is that Mexicans are lazy. Let's look at page 185. Example 14. The manager says to the workers, you have to finish todo eso porque I have other things to do. Todo eso, all this. Porque, because... Imagine those are your instructions. Like, what are you supposed to... But then the next lines of dialogue are pretty disturbing too. So let me act out these next lines for you. I'm sure this is exactly the way it came out in real life. Pretty sure. Did you see that? He didn't finish what I told him to finish. I told him to do that. Boss, maybe he didn't understand what you said. You kind of just said all of it because... All of it because... That's what you actually said in Spanish. He's just lazy. So notice where the blame goes. Now on page 188, example 18, there's this notice that says, hay muchos cambios en schedule. Here we're talking about people's work schedules, right? Now I'm not sure if Barrett brought this up to the manager's attention, but you gotta wonder how that conversation might have gone. Boss, we're short kitchen staff. A couple of the kitchen staff didn't show up today. I don't know what I'm gonna do, Rusty. These people are lazy. These kitchen people are lazy. Actually, boss, the sign that you put up is kind of hard to understand. It says, hay muchos cambios en schedule. The most important word of your sign isn't translated. So, here. Lazy. Okay, so we got racial ideologies driving these events here, but Barrett throws us a really interesting curveball. So on page 190, we see that Anglo-Spanish is incorporated into the actual food ordering system. This food ordering system uses a particular shorthand like all restaurants do. So we might get an order with add egg, add an extra egg. It comes with 3, we put 4 this time. We're paying for an extra egg. Or let's say an order comes with refried beans, but the customer wants black beans. So we might get a ticket order like sub black beans, shorthand version, right? Well, the ordering system at Chalupa Town, it only uses the word con, C-O-N, which means with, for a lot of different instructions like add or substitute. So you might see con black beans. So let's say you get that same order where the person wants substituted black beans, but it says con black beans. Logically, that means with black beans, probably on the side. Probably an extra charge. Probably someone's gonna get in trouble for making that mistake. Let's say you get the order omelet con egg. Literally, omelet with egg. No shit, omelets have eggs. But imagine the kinds of mistakes that this leads to. You got management who thinks Spanish speakers can't read, or they're stupid, or they're lazy, or they're sneaky and mischievous and just want to cause trouble for the restaurant. All of these different scenarios are directly linked to racial ideologies that are put into practice with the Anglo-Spanish, with the mock Spanish. This has the potential to prove all the stereotypes that management already believed about Mexicans and about Spanish speakers. So no doubt these managers might think, well, they work in these particular jobs because that's all they can do. Barely. Not to mention, think about the way people feel. Imagine going to work all anxious, hoping that you're not gonna mess up, hoping that you don't get fired, and taking all this verbal abuse from your racist managers. That is some depressing shit. Well, that's all for today, folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit up that new Patreon account I just made. This is The Social Life of Language, and I will see you very soon.
Oh. Wow, there's some questions piling up in there. So if you're wondering, the author, Rusty Barrett, loved this video. Shares it all over the place. Puts it on his syllabi. Pedagogically, I have 3 goals. 1, I want my viewers to walk away with 1 keyword in their pocket. At least 1. And by keyword, I mean big word, right? Now, generally, I designed these videos to be viewed before students read the actual text. So that means I'm not assuming any kind of prior knowledge, not assuming they know anything, and I'm especially not assuming they know the big words. So hopefully when they're done seeing this, they got one of those big words in their pocket. Now, 2, I want them to think the article or chapter is interesting and relevant. And number 3, I want them to feel like they have a running start into the material, that they actually feel confident when they pick up that article or that chapter or whatever. And that's it. Those are my 3 goals for each one of these videos. Now, you can see there's plenty of visuals. I put up keywords, I put up long quotes. For this particular one, I thought it would be funny to actually act out the parts. Now, obviously, I don't have actors. But if you have a little bit of editing skills, you can just act both parts yourself and then cut them together. I also use the black and whites to kind of signal that this is a dramatization. I added very stereotypical Mexican restaurant music to create the vibe. So yeah, you can use music now when you're teaching, and it changes a lot. So look at all this stuff you can do if you know how to edit yourself. And honestly, it's just kind of fun. It's creative. You kind of get into it when you're there in your bedroom trying to act out both sides of this dialogue. Now, obviously, I'm not an actor, but I just tried. Even if it comes out terrible, your students will probably get a laugh out of it because you're signaling to your students, to your audience, that you have a sense of humor, and you can even try acting even if it comes out bad. And plus, if you hate it, just cut it out. Don't show it. But it's fun just to try these kinds of things. I'm gonna pause right there so that we can get in some questions because there's so many, and wow, how are we gonna get to these? Oh, I do wanna, I saw one that was really easy. Where was it? Okay.
I can't find it, but I do. There was one question from yesterday that I do want to address that I think is important, and it's about how to light the lighting, how to light darker skin tones. And this is actually a really interesting topic here, because your cameras are actually designed for lighter skin tones. If you've ever read this book, Race After Technology, there's actually a history behind how our cameras are designed for lighter skin tones. It's very interesting. Am I saying that our cameras are racist? No, but I am saying that whoever designed the technology, the people that continue to design technology in cameras, are designing things like exposure norms, shutter speeds, things like that for lighter skin tones. So in that case, you do have to maybe use extra lighting. So nobody here is being paranoid if they think that they never come out in their cell phone pictures. It's literally how cameras are designed, and they vary from country to country, region to region. For example, in South Africa, they have a very specific exposure settings for skin color in South Africa. Very interesting book if you're into this like techie stuff. So yeah, you're gonna need extra light more than likely. Sunlight is always good though, and it's free. All right, Stacy, so you want to jump in here and?
Yes. So we have some sort of technical questions, but one thing that came up, especially after the video, was embedding videos and like movie clips. And first of all, like, how do you do it? And also, have you had any issues with like rights and that sort of thing?
Yes. So in YouTube, if you are monetized, you have to follow copyright law. I am not monetized yet because you have to have like a gazillion hours of watch time, and you have to have like 1 billion subscribers or whatever. With that said, I have gotten a copyright strike, is what it's called. And it's because I used this really, really long clip of Donald Trump. So there are things to worry about if you're uploading to YouTube. The general rule is don't use more than like 10 seconds of a movie that is unedited. In that particular lesson where I used the Terminator clip, I actually cut that up. So I shortened it a lot. So I probably didn't get caught by the YouTube machine, the YouTube algorithms, because I cut up that clip all over the place, so it didn't like recognize it as the movie. So there's that little trick. How I get all the movie clips is YouTube, and then screen record my computer, and just like that. That's how I find them. And it's pretty much the same process. You screen record something that makes a little tiny movie, and then you drop it into your video editing program, whatever it is. And it's that simple.
We've also had a couple of questions from people who are teaching sort of very technical or mathematical subjects and who want to draw on a whiteboard at the same time as they narrate what they're talking about or narrate what they're doing. What would you suggest for that?
That's an interesting, I actually know a YouTube channel that you can watch for ideas that deals with math. It's called Yay Math, Y-A-Y, like yay math. And if you just type that into YouTube, he actually does math on whiteboards or whatever. If you want to get super technical about, if you want to get really fancy with graphics, there is a way to do it on, like, let's say an iPad, where you're drawing out the equations and stuff on an iPad and you're screen recording your iPad. All the iPads have a screen record option. So you would be talking, you would be screen recording, and then afterwards you take that screen recording and then you drop it into your video, and then you picture in picture it the way we had talked about a couple modules ago.
That was a couple other people asked about iPad capability and where it falls on the sort of the phone, laptop, desktop spectrum. Do they tend to be on par with phones or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely use your laptop over your webcam. Yeah, the laptop has very similar camera capabilities to regular iPhones and cell phones. Yeah,
Sorry, using
I mean iPad. Yeah, very similar. And also, they're what program is it? I believe it's like Final Cut Pro or maybe even iMovie. There are people that edit exclusively on their iPads. So like even if you didn't have a full-on computer, or you have like, let's say, a Windows machine and you really want to use like Mac programs to edit, there are plenty of people out there that edit everything on their iPad. So it's a little bit different and you're more limited, but remember the limitations are actually work for you at the beginning because there's less confusing stuff to worry about. So yeah, totally try your iPad. I've never done it myself because I have my big stuff, but it's definitely capable as both your recording camera and your editing software. And you can connect a microphone to your iPad.
There was a question about the Movo microphone versus the Rhodes microphone that you showed us yesterday. What would other than price point, which I think, a lot of people are taking into consideration, but also what else would you consider when making a choice between those two microphones?
Right. So obviously the more expensive one connects to everything. The Movo is limited to what it connects to. It works with regular cameras and cell phones. In terms of quality, there is a big difference, but only when you hear a direct contrast, only when you hear the good microphone and then right after that, you hear something with the Movo. If you don't have that contrast, nobody will notice. Everybody's gonna think like, yeah, that sounds pretty good. And because it does sound pretty good. It's just, at my level, I already, I've gone through these little tiny steps of like incremental improvements. I used the Movo for a while and then I wanted the better one. Another good thing about the Movo though, is it doesn't have a battery, so you don't have to charge it or anything. The fancy one that I always use, you can see the little light on it. It does require that you charge it. It also has a lot of little extra features on there that might be confusing to somebody at the very beginning, but you just easily just turn all those extra features off, and it works the same as the Movo. But in the future, when you start getting better at this, you're going to actually really appreciate having all those little extra features. So do I think that this expensive microphone is worth $150 more than the Movo? Yes, I totally think it's worth the extra $150. Yeah, was that everything? Was that all the concerns? I think I covered everything.
Yeah, I think people just wanted to know, like, when they're making that choice, if it was worth spending the extra money. So it is now 12:30. So if you have to hop off, feel free to do so. Maybe we can hang out for a couple of minutes and ask some additional questions. Feel free to put your hand up if you would like to ask Mike a question. You'll be getting a thank you all so much for joining us. You'll be getting a follow-up email from us later today that will have Mike's gear list. It will have links to all the videos. We are recording these. They probably won't be available right away, but they will eventually be available via the Teaching and Learning Center's website and possibly a couple other places. Thank you all. If you need to step out, go ahead. If you have some questions, put your hand up and we can call on you.
Yes, thank you everybody that's taking off right now.
And thank you, Mike.
Really fun.
Well, of course, yeah.
Really fun. Really fun.
So,
But
anyone
yeah,
with any questions that did not get answered? Somebody asked about singing. People who incorporate singing into their whether the Rhodes mic would be the best one for that.
Oh yeah, definitely the Rode mic. The Rode mic is superior in every way. In every way. It's just, you get what you pay for, basically. The Movo mic, when you buy it by itself in isolation without the little kit, it's only, I think, $40 without the kit alone. So you're basically talking about putting up a $40 microphone versus a microphone that's $250. Yeah, it's just gonna be, it's gonna be way better. Your voice is gonna sound bigger and fuller. That's probably, you'll hear it the most with women's voices. The Movo mic is just not gonna have that same bass response. Although on the other hand, if you have a really deep voice, then maybe you don't want the extra bass frequencies added that the Rode mic will pick up. So there's that. But I mean, ultimately, the Rode mic it's the way to go for sure.
So Francesca, I'm going to unmute you so you can ask your question.
Thank you so much. Mike, thank you so much. This was incredibly valuable. I really enjoyed. I was here from workshop 1. I learned a lot, and I look forward to following your YouTube channel more. I actually have a question. I have a really old iPhone 6, which is about to die, and I need to invest on a new cell phone. It's going to be an iPhone, but I was concerned in terms of data storage and the kind of power that you need to record these videos on your cell phone. I don't necessarily aim to keep them on my cell phone, but I will have to have enough power and data to at least shoot them first, and before I remove them to some other drive. So I just wanted to ask since you so expertly recommended various gear in terms of a new cell phone, what would be the basic sort of requirements that you think would be appropriate? Thank you.
Right. Good question. So I just happen to know this. Apple just released this iPhone S or Apple iPhone 11s or something to that extent. It's like $500 right now. Super cheap, very basic cell phone. And as we know, $500 is really cheap for Apple phones. Now, in terms of storage, I would recommend that one because you're going to want a little bit extra storage than you would normally get on your phone. I would say probably you'd want to be in the 64 gigs minimum, definitely not 32 gigs, minimum 64 gigs. And if you think you're going to be recording and then immediately exporting to your computer or whatever, 64 gigs is fine. If you think you're going to do several lectures in a row, then I would definitely go up to the 128 gig for sure. The size of memory card that I use in my cameras never go under 128 gigs. That's what I need just generally is 128 gigs. With that said, any iPhone like 9, 10, 11, that new iPhone SE, so I think somebody put in here, $399. All of those are going to have really good cameras. You're not going to have a problem with the camera. It's just going to be picking up the iPhone with enough storage, which is 64 gigs minimum. 128 gigs would be even better if you don't plan to immediately move all of your videos off of your camera. So hope that answers it.
Deborah, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Thank you very much. Mike, I want to say, I've taught pedagogy and I've observed a lot of teachers, and you are an absolute master. You are an example for anyone who wants to improve their teaching. and you're my new pedagogic hero. So I'm going to try to be as good as you are after 40 years of teaching. I'm going to try to be as good as you are. Now, I want to ask technical questions. I'd love to have a more pedagogic conversation with you about some of the critical political pedagogy issues you raised. But I won't get into that. Maybe I'll be able to talk to you about that some other time. I want to ask technical questions. One, about using the iPhone. Using my iPad instead of the iPhone. Is it possible to set that up? Is there a stand you can buy to set that up the same way that you had the iPhone set up? I'm assuming there is something like that.
Absolutely. They have those stands, and they're pretty cheap too. They're like $20, $25. Yeah. And you literally just you put in iPad stand.
And then the second question, yes. Okay. And you'll find a million things like everything else on Amazon.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So the second question has to do with, I've noticed you do use a script. You said, you have a script there, and you don't look like you're using the script. But if you have the camera set up in front of you, or you have the iPhone or the iPad, and you have your script, and your lighting, how do you adjust all that so you can be as smooth as you are and follow the script? I just got finished watching some videos I had my students make instead of writing papers, and those eye movement just got me like, oh my gosh, I don't want my eyes going across the script like that. And I noticed Mike's not doing that. So how am I going to do that, Mike? What do I need to do? Please explain.
Oh yeah. I mean, it takes practice. It also just very clever script placement. So for example, everything today was scripted. So I have almost everything, like 99% of it, right?
Right.
But my main trick is the looking away thing, looking up, so that it makes the viewer think that you are definitely not looking at a paper. You are definitely thinking about this in real time. That is my main go-to move, because if you try to, you're not going to memorize your whole script. It's just impossible. I tried to do it at the beginning because I was so worried about like looking down and then looking up, and it just didn't seem smooth to me. It gave away the fact that I'm reading something, and I just didn't like that at all. So I'm always going to go back to that. And the way that I do it is actually very particular. I read a line, semi-memorize it, or perhaps I do have it memorized if it's just a single sentence. And then I look up, and then I give myself a little bit of a pause as if I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, then look directly at the lens, at the camera itself. You want to look at the camera as much as possible. And then deliver the line. And then while I'm delivering the line, I'll like look over here and like pretend like I'm still thinking about it, and then look back at the camera. When I look back at the camera, I'm usually reading the next line of the script. And I'm memorizing the next line of the script, or refamiliarizing, because you wrote the script, so it's going to be kind of in your head at that moment, right? Refamiliarize myself with the next line, then kind of look back, maybe do this. And then also, the hand gestures too, they kind of distract people from looking at your eyeballs the whole time.
Right.
You're going to see your eyeballs kind of glance down every now and then. You are ultimately reading it. But if you put the script right underneath your lens or your camera, it's going to be the difference between looking versus looking, or off to the side to read something, off to the side or whatever. It's really about distracting your audience from knowing that you're reading, whether it's you're glancing over here or you're using your hands. It's it's distraction.
And it's actually acting. It is acting. You are teaching, doing a good lecture is acting. If you don't put yourself in the role of an actor, either in front of students or on video, they're not going to be interested. So you are teaching acting, even though it's it's pedagogy as well. So I really appreciate your attention to that. And I mostly do my lectures spontaneously by now. I have memorized most of them. So, but I still like to have a little bit of a script to keep myself from getting off on tangents. So I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You are fantastic, fantastic, wonderful. Thank you so much.
We had a couple of questions about, turning your laptop into a teleprompter, whether there was anything that would do that. And Patria Lopez de Victoria suggested using iMovie credits and placing your script there to read it at a given speed. That's something that I've never tried that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So teleprompter, there are teleprompter apps out there, but a lot of times you have to buy additional accessories. But for the iPad, for example, there are teleprompter apps that you can use. They do exist. They're not too expensive, but they're not free. Teleprompter for me, so I have the Word document right in front of me, as I did today and the last 3 times that we've done this. It's been full screen, and the video has been over here in the corner. Teleprompter wise, I'm just using my mouse and I'm scrolling down, and that's all I'm doing the whole time. I'm reading, scrolling, reading, scrolling, reading, scrolling, and that's been my method for, yeah, that's been what I've been doing for a while, at least the last like 20 or 30 videos. Like I said, at the beginning, I really did try to memorize my script, or I tried to memorize paragraphs at a time. But then when you do that and then you forget right in the middle or right at the end of the paragraph and you realize, oh my God, I have to deliver that whole paragraph again. That's just so frustrating. So now it's just like, I don't even try to memorize paragraphs. I don't try to memorize more than 2 lines, or 2 sentences, I mean. And very generally, it's 1 sentence at a time that I'm reading. And then distraction. Somebody said magician. I actually really agree with that. It is actually about the distracting stuff that's going on too. Yeah, it's definitely that. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think if we have one more question, but I don't know that I think we might have actually gotten through most of them. Anyone want to throw their hand up the last minute, or are we all good? Oh, sorry, Mongai. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Let me see. Let me find you in my list. There you are. I will unmute you. Yes.
Okay, excellent sessions, Mike, and I really enjoyed it. And I didn't come to the first session, so probably you might have said this. I would like to really know the alternate to the iMovie if you are using Windows.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other choice that you have?
The one that I have touched briefly that I really liked, that was kind of easy, is called Adobe Premiere Rush. As in like you're rushing to class or something. Adobe Premiere Rush. I don't know if it's free right now though. You might have to pay for a subscription, and I think it's like $15 a month or something. It's a little pricey. But that's the only one I know Windows, because I haven't had a Windows computer in quite a while. But I did used to use Movie Maker. I don't know if that's actually still there on Windows anymore. But that's the one that I used to use for a while is Movie Maker. But then the next one that I can recommend that you can do basically anything and everything that you've seen on my videos is that Adobe Premiere Rush.
Thank you.
And that would be the one that I would recommend for Windows.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Watch for our email this afternoon, which will have a bunch of links and the gear list and information in it. Thank you so much to Mike for doing this. It's been fabulous. And thank you to Justin, our college assistant, for helping out. Thank you to TLC and the GC Digital Initiatives. These videos will be available eventually via their library. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you all very much.
Yes, and we're done.
Done, and we're done.
And we're done. All right, see you guys.
Bye.